Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on a Friday for another episode of WCN's Closer Look series. My name's Tommy Sheridan. I'm the Senior Program Manager of our partner network here at WCN, or the Wildlife Conservation Network. And so I'm very excited today that you guys get the chance to connect with one of our newest partners at WCN's network, the Hirola Conservation Program, or HCP. You might have been enjoying some of the sounds you just heard from Eastern Kenya, which is where the Hirola Conservation Program is based. The Hirola Conservation Program is a indigenous-led nonprofit organization based in Eastern Kenya in Garissa County along the Kenyan-Somalian border. And the project is primarily dedicated to promoting the conservation of the Hirola antelope, as well as the Somali giraffe. Many of you might have never heard of the Hirola antelope before, but it's a critically endangered species with a global population size of fewer than 500 individuals. And it's threatened by habitat loss, as well as competition with livestock and predation. So the Hirola Conservation Program team works with local Kenyans and Somalians to save this endangered species while also improving local livelihoods. So HCP is currently restoring habitat for Hirola in an effort to bolster their population growth in their natural range. And today we're lucky enough to be joined by Dr. Abdullahi Ali, who's an indigenous Kenyan conservationist born and raised in Garissa, sharing his homeland with the Hirola and giraffe. And despite being raised in a small village, Dr. Ali received his PhD in ecology from the University of Wyoming, where he also won the Outstanding Dissertation of the Year award in 2016. And in 2014, he had founded the Hirola Conservation Program to dedicate his commitment to saving the critically endangered Hirola in eastern Kenya. Ali is also a National Geographic Explorer, a Whitley Fund for Nature Award winner, and a member of the IUCN Species Specialist Group for antelopes. So we're really lucky today to hear directly from Ali about his experience working in Eastern Kenya. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation from Ali, please feel free to share them in the chat. Some of his team will be able to respond in real time, but we'll also have plenty of time for a conversation at the end where I will answer some of your questions with Ali directly. So please take it away from here, Ali, and I hope you all enjoy learning about his homeland in Eastern Kenya.
Thank you. Thank you, Tommy. Um, yeah, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes, thank you. So I will, in the next 30 minutes or so, I'll try to share the story of the Hirola. Right on your screen, what you're seeing is the Hirola antelope. They look like a typical antelope in the African savanna, and look like a crossbreed between a hartebeest and impala. But they're very distinct antelope, very unique and restricted to just south of Garissa County in eastern Kenya. They are relative to many other famous African antelopes, the hartebeest, the wildebeest, topi, but they represent a distinct genus, their own genus. And if we lose the Hirola, we are not only losing a species, but we are losing an entire genus. So they are active mostly early morning and in the evening. We call them crepuscular, and they live in a small social herds, as you can see in this photo. Yeah, they are typically it's hard to tell females from males, but males have larger, bigger horns, as you can see the one on my left with a bigger horn, and the rest are females on this front line. They also called the four-eyed antelope or ghost of the grasslands or spectacle antelopes. They have this unusual gland just below the eyes, and people have given them the name the four-eyed antelope. And here in eastern Kenya, they co-occur with the reticulated giraffes, which are also endangered in this part of the world. So before we get into the specifics of the conservation actions we are doing, I'll give you a little bit perspective on the history of Hirola conservation. Hirola was first described in 1888, and the global population by then was estimated to be around 16,000. And then the first conservation action that was implemented by the government then was to move some individuals into Savo East National Park, which is a large protected area in southern Kenya. And this population did not do well and continued to stay, but continued to stay stable. And then the first protected area was established in eastern Kenya called the Arawale National Reserve. And this collapsed shortly after the establishment due to remoteness of this area. And in 1982, some individuals were translocated into zoos in the US and Europe, but this population also died due to disease. In 1985, there was a drastic decline of the population in eastern Kenya and areas along the Kenya-Somalia border due to a disease that affect cattle as well, called rinderpest. But that was eradicated shortly. However, that did not trigger the recovery of the species. In 2011, we estimated the global population to be about 400 to 500 individuals. And then some individuals were moved into a predator-proof sanctuary to breed them for future introduction. And so as you can see, there was a continuous decline. Unfortunately, the last aerial census was in 2011, and we were not able to update that number due to instability in that part of Kenya. So in 2014, as Tommy mentioned, I founded the Hirola Conservation Program, which is solely dedicated to the recovery of this species. Our mission is to protect and increase the numbers and distribution of Hirola through participation, community participation, education, and international support. So as you can see, this is Kenya, and the southern part of Kenya is where we have the Hirola's entire geographic range. Historically used to extend into Somalia, but that population is thought to extinct and now exists just in the southern part of Garissa County in eastern Kenya. And the range of the reticulated giraffes also overlap in that part of Kenya. And this is where I was born and raised, and this is my dad's house. And it's a very marginalized part of Kenya, very remote, not comparable to other developed part of Kenya. People still write on wooden sticks, as you can see. That's how I learned writing, my first elementary school. And the people here, because it's arid and nomadic, they fold their houses and move from one place to another in search of pasture throughout. They're highly mobile, and they keep goats, cows, and camels. And camel is highly valued domestic animal. Wildlife, therefore, interact freely with livestock, and people really coexist here with livestock. And that is the first orientation I got from that landscape, interacting with wildlife and protecting our goats and livestock from predators, particularly caracals and jackals were notorious for taking my young goats. So I started interacting with them and became responsible for our livestock. And then in the year 1988, I was about 7 years old. The first school was built in this part of Kenya, and then I was forcefully captured by the Kenya Defense Forces military and taken to a compulsory elementary education in Eastern Kenya and Garissa County. This was my first school, and it was a boarding school. So I was taken away from my parents and then moved into this school. And this is where I saw first permanent buildings. And my diet changed from, life from camel milk to maize and beans and potatoes. And I had a serious trouble tolerating, eventually developing gut dysbiosis that continued to bother me to date. And then I transitioned to high school, and in high school I had a geography class where I had the opportunity to go into the Mara, and I was amazed by the diversity of life that I saw in this part of Kenya, which was very different from where I grew up. I grew up in an arid system with less than 150 millimeters of rain, and then I came to the Mara with over 1,200 millimeters of rain per annum. And the diversity of animals and large mammals that I saw just shocked me. And from that moment, I wanted to be a ranger to protect um, wildlife. So I joined the University of Nairobi, where I took my first degree in wildlife biology and master's, and eventually ended up in Wyoming, where I had the opportunity to see also the snow for the first time, which was also an interesting life encounter. This, to be honest, was my first international trip away from Kenya, and it has given me a global perspective. And I ended up also meeting colleagues who are working on large herbivores in Yellowstone National Park. And so I had the opportunity to interact with these people and learn about how to do ecology. And then I came back to Kenya to uh, address the Hirola issue. And the key question was, why are they the world's most endangered antelope? Why are they not able to recover? Why are they not able to bounce back from that decline? So typically, um, habitat is usually a big issue for most species as an underlying factor. So we looked at the habitat, and this is a historical satellite imagery of the Hirola's geographic range. And this is a satellite imagery analysis. Let's start with the left one. The linear feature you're seeing on my left is Tana River, Kenya's longest river, and marks the western boundary of the Hirola's geographic range. The brown areas you see are historical grasslands that supported Hirola. Hirola primarily feeds on grasses, and the green areas represent trees. So by 2012, there was a massive encroachment in the Hirola's geographic range, representing about 300% increase in tree cover. And that affected food availability for Hirola. They rely on open space to see predators, to give birth, and also to recruit younger individuals. So with this kind of habitat or range collapse, it's a big issue for them to thrive. And this area continued to be a sink for them and continue to decline. But now we understand the issue, and historical conservation action relied on intuition, guessing what the issue is. And a lot of time people will argue that it's predators. People suspected that it is predators that are killing them. But it's very hard to imagine a scenario in which a native predator will affect the population of a native prey and to an extent that where they are not able to coexist. So habitat became the culprit underlying Hirola decline. So why did the habitat collapse? Historically, about 5,000 elephants used to coexist with Hirola. And because we are close to the Somali border and the Arabian Peninsula, and at the height of elephant poaching in Africa in the 1980s, all these elephants were poached, leading to the loss of these elephants. Elephants maintain grasslands. They open and break up habitat and maintain corridors for species that coexist with them, like Hirola. So once the elephants were gone, Hirola also continued to decline over time, and this encroachment eventually engulfed their habitat, and they were no longer able to thrive and continue to increase. Of course, there are other factors that contribute to this, including overgrazing. The people in that area are primarily pastoralists. They keep cows and goats, and increase quantity is better than quality. So the more cattle you keep, the higher status in the society. So there was eventually an 400 times increase of livestock over time in this part of Kenya. In addition to that, because of climate change, drought affected us as well. And trees drought favors trees over grasses over time. The trees will survive and there will be no grasses. So in addition to that, that tree cover increase also affected giraffes. It's not just Hirola. You will imagine that the tallest animal on earth will be untouchable by these trees, but see what is happening to these giraffes. They are totally engulfed by this encroachment. In other areas, because of the drought, also forage has been affected, leading to dry trees that do not have any browse for these giraffes. So they also continue to decline and continue to face silent extinction that has not been given attention by the international community. So we are doing sort of large landscape scale habitat restoration for the Hirola. Given that we lost the elephants that were maintaining this habitat, we are doing manual tree removal, grass reseeding, and maintaining elephants that are naturally recolonizing these landscapes, and education and awareness as well. So this is some of the invasive trees that have encroached the Hirola habitat, and this is how we cut them manually with the labor from the local communities, and continue to clear and prepare subplots within the areas we have cleared, so that we see which grasses can do best in different type of soil across the Hirola's range. And we also burn the excess twigs that come from these cleared bushes, and we use the wood chips that are stronger for something else that we're going to see in this presentation as well. So the key question also that we looked at is what do Hirola eat under this range degradation? And they have some preferred grass species. They have moderately used grass species, and there are others they avoid. But some of these species are not commercially available, and it's very hard for them. The seeds are not available, and it's very hard to use it for restoration. So we looked at commercially available grass species and those that are able to tolerate long-term climate change. And we've identified, for example, Chloris roxabagiana, Eragrostis superba, and Sencra cerealis as species suitable for range-wide Hirola habitat restoration. So, and in this restoration plots, we also continue to monitor which species are performing well. And for example, we look at how they respond to different soil types, and we look at the performance of these grasses, so that we learn from them, whether we do like a mixed seed plots or single species plots. So we continue to analyze this and understand the best way we can continue restoring the habitat for Hirola. And this is one of the community members that we are working with. As you can see, they're carrying machetes. They're not going to war. This is we're not using a mechanized system. We're just using local tools that are available to clear these invasive species and prepare the restoration sites for the Hirola. Something else was we in 2012, in collaboration with other partners, including the Kenya Wildlife Service, we moved individuals into a predator-proof sanctuary so that we increase the numbers that are there, and eventually use this as a breeding population to release them back into the wild. And that fence was about 25 square kilometers, and 48 individuals were initially moved. And that population grew very nicely, increasing to about 140 individuals in 10 or 12 years or so. But what does it take to release these Hirolas back into restored site where we've restored? Of course, there are a variety of things that we need to consider, including site selection and habitat restoration, paired selection and social structure, predation risk mitigation, post-release monitoring, environmental and seasonal timing, when to release them, and legal and social factors. There are veterinary issues that we take into consideration, and of course, community involvement. these species occur entirely outside formal government protected areas. So all the individuals or the conservation actions we do are in communal land. So the support of the local communities is really critical into monitoring. And then we look into behavioral adaptations and habitat movement of the species once released. Of course, predators are just outside the fence, waiting for these individuals to be released. That's how African wild dogs, they're, waiting for an opportunity to see. And these individuals that have been raised inside the fence for 3 to 4 generations can become a predator naive and develop a mismatched responses to predators. And as a practice before reintroduction happens, we compared uh, the behavior of individuals that are sexually early on, and then compared that how that has changed over time, and eventually compared with free-ranging population. Some of the things that we are looking at include flight times, flight distance, and flight speed, and in addition to vigilance, how do they react to predators? And of course, for individuals that have been raised inside the sanctuary, over time, they will forget about, the predator responses, and you expect them to run slowly from predators. But free-ranging individuals have their natural instincts and will move with quick speed and are likely to survive. So how do we train them before we release? And this is an example of individuals that are inside the fence, and you can see the very slow reaction to lion call. And of course, both predation and range quality can affect introduction outcomes. Predation, for example, can affect the survival of calves, can affect the survival of subadults, can affect survival of adults, and can affect pregnancy or fecundity. Equally, range quality or the habitat where you are releasing these animals affect the survival of calves, also affect the survival of subadults, affect survival of adults, and affect also pregnancy rates. However, this can disproportionately affect different life stages. As you can see, predators, for example, can heavily impact calf survival. The thickness of the arrow here indicates the level of impact. So there's a disproportionate impact on calf survival, subadult survival, and adult survival. Equally, range quality can have also disproportionate impact, but less impact on, for example, calf survival, subadults, and less on perhaps adults, but more on pregnancy rates, given that females will not become pregnant if the food quality and everything is extremely poor. But eventually, all that will affect the increase. The dollar sign you're seeing there at the bottom is just the population growth. So we have to take all this into consideration as we plan introduction. In addition, because of the chronic low numbers of the Hirola, we have scouts and rangers across community conservancies and where these Hirolas are to protect every individual. The survival of every individual matters given their chronic low numbers. And so we have, and because of remoteness of this area, where they're using camels and motorbikes mostly to monitor these herds in these remote locations. In addition to that, from the restoration, we have been able to establish enterprises, particularly grass seed harvesting and briquettes from the excess wood chips. And you will see, for example, these are women harvesting grass seeds. Once we restore, we are able to harvest and use the seeds again, buy from these women groups, and then use to establish the next grass island so that we're able to create connected islands of grasslands across the Hirola range so that we eventually increase the available habitat for Hirola. And once we increase the available habitat for Hirola, we are just providing more food, and that will eventually contribute to survival rates, pregnancy rates, and eventually the population will increase over time. These are some excess wood chips, and uh, we burn them and produce local charcoal, where we also sell to industries and hotels. And moving on to the giraffes, they co-occur with the Hirola and the livestock, and they are all over. And some of these, in this landscape, you will see a variety of giraffes. As you can see, some are brown, some are black. You'll also see the famous white giraffe. And they co-occur in this landscape, and they're increasing in number as well. We lost some to poachers. Probably have seen it in the media for the past 3-4 years. And reticulated giraffe have recently been classified as endangered because approximately 15,000 individuals remain in the wild, representing more than 50% decrease from an estimated 35,000 individuals 4 decades ago. And because of the land degradation that's happening here, they're moving to homesteads and interacting with people. In addition, because of the droughts and the landscape change we mentioned, a lot of people that have lost their livestock have permanently settled along that permanent river I mentioned, the Tana River, and started growing mangoes using irrigation. And because of the giraffes that have also lost their favorite acacia trees, um, mango flowers have become one of their favorites. So they move into these farms, and as soon as they spot these flowers, they strip the mangoes naked. It takes about 4 years to grow mango plants to fruit as well. And you can imagine the pain for a poor farmer who has been waiting for 4 years to harvest this and eventually end up with this. So there's an intense conflict that's very pronounced and unique to our local setting. It doesn't happen elsewhere in Kenya. Um, so people end up retaliating, and the primary means they use is snares. And these snares affect this snare. I mean, they set up traps with wires, but eventually will be able to pull the skin and affect the bone, and eventually that animal will die, and very painful. Unfortunately, we have to call vets from 300 miles away, and it takes a while for them to reach here. And it takes a lot of effort to remove that snare. And sometimes we don't see them. And when we see them, because the vets are coming from a very far distance, it causes a lot of pain and trouble before we are able to help that animal. In addition to that, we tagged about 50 individuals from around these areas. And as you can see, they move along the river, crisscrossing the farmlands and the riparian areas along the river. And we're able to understand their needs, their diet shifts, and able to advise on management interventions that we can do over time. So that is the solar powered tags that we put on their tail, and monitor with the scalp throughout the year, and we're able to generate this data for the first time in this part of Kenya. And we're also working with farmers farmers that have been affected by these giraffes. These are local women groups and who have been historically mango growing and now have shifted to lime farming. Giraffes do not attack lime. And the lime tree, you're able to harvest multiple times and matures half the time it takes for a mango tree to mature. So we advised people to minimize mango farming and move to lime farming. And we link them with companies in Nairobi that use this lime product. So they come to the sites and take this lime directly. So it has become more profitable than mango. And this has become a popular action and are helping us now to save the giraffes together. This is the lime and this is the mango. And now people have shifted from the mango to this lime in an effort to save the giraffe. Of course, the post-harvest losses associated with mangoes is far more than lime. It's also affected by pests, and lime is not affected by pests. And with all this effort, this is an example of restoration sites for Hirola, as you can see, where we've cleared, and after restoration, and the Hirolas are coming back to feed them. Of course, the primary threat facing them is reversible, and I'm optimistic that we are able to address this given modest amount of funding and international support. Of course, species that have declined, like the Hirola, will require long-term commitment, conservation action that meet the scale and the threat facing the species. It also requires evidence-based and adaptive framework with clear theory of change. It also requires a dedicated local leadership and that drives our vision. As outsiders who will come and go, will have limited success. And of course, this requires continuous and sustained funding. And we are very glad that we have been able to partner with WCN to help us realize this vision. This is the National Recovery and Action Plan for the Hirola antelope, and it's a blueprint that guides priority conservation action that we should invest in that will eventually able to help reverse or halt this decline of this species. With that, I'll take questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ali. Um, I'd like to get back on video, Medellin, if we can help it enable that. All right, great. Um, well, yeah, thank you so much, Ali. That was a super insightful presentation. I really appreciate so much clarity about a species that probably many of the audience might have not heard of before, the Hirola antelope. And I think that your team is working in a really challenging landscape when it comes to climate change adaptations that are necessary to survive there, and some of the insecurity that you face along the border. It's an incredibly challenging landscape, and you guys are dedicating endless commitment to continue to work there and highlight the challenges of the Hirola and the people living there. So I applaud you for all the work you do every day. And know that you're a big part of a larger team that is writing a bunch of responses in the chat already to questions. So it looks like Sangali Edwin and Moha Hussein, who Moha is a WCN Scholar recipient as well. They're already responding to a lot of questions we saw in the chat. But I just wanted to follow up on a few with you directly. So one of the questions was, I think, inspired by how interconnected we see this landscape is with different wildlife and different plant species, and how that's impacting the Hirola. So I understand that the loss of a keystone species like elephants can have a cascading effect on Hirola antelope populations as well. It looks like Peter Zoller in the chat, who I think is from the New England Zoo, asked that if you can share more about the restoration of elephant populations in the Garissa area, and if that's helping at all to address some of the invasive acacia or mutenge trees.
Say that again. Ask the
Can you
question.
share if there's been efforts or updates about the elephant population in the area and restoration, and if that's
Thank you.
helping to address at all the invasive species?
Thank you. So the situation has improved from how it was in the 80s. And because we are in between Savo East National Park, which is one of Kenya's largest protected area, and the Meru National Park, both of them are known for large elephant populations. And this is a historical corridor area where we are. And because of that, and because of the improved instability, elephants are naturally recolonizing these areas and moving in between. However, elephants are heavily guarded in Kenya, and whenever they move outside formal government protected areas, there's usually a government response team that will push them to this back to these areas. But they occasionally come to these areas, and because of also emerging community conservation conservancies, they're able to have the protection they need, and sometimes temporarily stay with these areas. And of course, for them to help, they're helping. The elephant is helping to thin down these invasive species, but of course, will require the numbers that have been there historically and will take a lot of time. So active habitat management now becomes a prerequisite for Hirola recovery.
Thanks, Ali. Yeah, that's super insightful and hopeful to see that some of the situation is improving. Um, Another question is about I've been very lucky to visit your organization's work on the ground in Garissa back in 2024, and it was very clear to me that the dedication and trust that you guys have to working directly with herders and farmers in the area to really understand what their day-to-day challenges are. Of course, coming from that community, I think you understand it well, and you have a tremendous amount of respect from your peers in the area. But I'm curious to learn more about how that value of being really from this region and being a locally led organization has improved or addressed your efforts for conservation. Of course, we know that in conservation, there's a long histories of people maybe working in an area for short term, but not staying permanently. And I'm curious how you felt being from this area in Garissa has improved your ability to achieve success in conservation.
Yeah, thank you. Home is always the best. And so this is my home. Um, Unfortunately, it's very dry area and very hot. Government officials will request like a hardship allowance whenever they're sent to this part of Kenya. Um, um, it's like a space environment where everything tries to kill you. From the temperature to the mosquitoes to the sunburn. It's a very hard area to work in, but it's my home, it's my landscape. When we, for example, discovered the white giraffes in that part of Kenya, it has changed from a place of a lot of nothing to a place of wonders. And there was, media coverage all over the world focusing on that. And of course, with the uniqueness of Hirola, um, you know, and having grown there, I've been able to sustain long-term conservation action and able to recruit also younger people to take this from me as well. And I'm kind of a first generation conservationist from this region, and so inspiring others to take from me and move this forward. And that has had and from conservancy associations to um, um, people who have studied other species, and it has been a homegrown solution for the conservation needs that we have.
Incredible, Ali. Yeah, I think I really applaud you for paving the way for many more conservationists from Garissa area to follow in your footsteps and continue to dedicate so much resources and energy to this important region. Yeah. So thank you. Um, yeah, you mentioned about the uniqueness of the Hirola. I think we had some questions in the chat that were more related to just curiosity about the biology of the species. So I was curious if you could share more about their appearance. One audience member, Joanna, asked about why antelopes have the holes under their eyes. Can you tell us more about this unique design and what it's adapted for?
Yeah, it's just for territorial marking. It's a gland just below the eyes, and it's just for territorial marking. And of course, it's very hard. Um, it's they are quite distinct from other antelopes, and um, whenever people see them for the first time, they will always say that they are unique and they're not able to confuse them with other antelopes. So they are also very shy and skittish. So they will move behind bushes, uh, uh, and some people call them like the stupid antelope because they don't do very well in escaping predators. So that they have a variety of names in this part of Kenya, but they are evolutionary distinct. Uh, um, their closest relative will be, the wildebeest and the hartebeest, but they're very distinct uh, in their own genus, and they are uh, they're the only extant member of that entire genus, single species representing an entire genus. Wildebeest may have 4 or 5 traces, hartebeest the same, but Hirola is just one. So there's nothing like them in the entire world.
Wow, incredible. Yeah, so it sounds like with such a small population, I think every individual matters to maintaining a genetic diversity for the restoration of this population as well. So
That's right.
super insightful. Thanks, Ali. Yeah, you mentioned about their challenges with escaping from predators, especially those that have been reintroduced to the wild. One of the audience members also asked about if giraffes face any of the same challenges. Can you share about maybe the predators that typically attack giraffes and how they avoid them? Yeah.
Humans are the main problem, not predators, because of the conspicuousness of giraffes and the bulkiness of the meat that they can provide. There's a lot of bushmeat crisis that's affecting them. And unfortunately, the local communities do not hunt bushmeat in that part of Kenya, but there's a lot of people that are coming from elsewhere in Kenya that are coming with different cultures. Uh, and they are hired as farm laborers in that part of Kenya, and they come up with these snare ideas, and they have they hunt wild animals. So we are facing bushmeat crisis for giraffe, mostly affected, mostly from these migrants from other parts of Kenya. And the, the giraffes, I mean, we lost most of the large predators, the lions, in that part of Kenya. So it's not a big issue for giraffes.
Helpful to know. Yeah, so it seems like your approach when you're reintroducing Hirola from a breeding sanctuary to the wild is to expose them to a bit of rewilding by exposing them to sounds of what a predator might sound like so that they can readapt to learning how to escape those predators. I'm curious, it sounds like with giraffes, it's a bit more difficult because the challenge they're facing is human driven. But I'm curious how Hirola Conservation Program approaches maybe reinstitutionalizing or reintroducing education to human communities in the area of how to coexist better with wildlife. Maybe there's lessons you've learned from your indigenous roots that have you feel like could be valuable to people who maybe are migrating to this region and aren't as familiar with the ecosystem. Can you share more about your education and outreach efforts and how that helps to improve coexistence with wildlife?
Yeah, thank you. We established the first education center in this Kenya. We're mainly focusing on schools and the public. So we have a camp where we have a school, they can come to our camp and learn um, the importance of wildlife. They can also develop a school-based wildlife program, like within their campus, they create wildlife habitat. And we also developed a variety of tools where the kids can use. Uh, in addition, we have an extension program where we visit the farmers and talk to both the farm owners and the laborers to discuss the plight of giraffes. And the Lime program has given us an opportunity to interact so that we both address the need of the farmers and also the plight of the giraffes. Of course, we speak the same language, so we share a lot of commonalities, be it identity, be it religion, be it trust. So we're able to communicate easily with the local communities and share ideas and exchange concerns, and we're able to facilitate the government official like the Kenya Wildlife Service to help us where enforcement is needed as well.
Very helpful, Ollie. Yeah. It just goes to show that I think a lot of Hirola Conservation Program's efforts are very holistic. It's not just about addressing poaching or predators, but in reality, I think you're addressing a more holistic landscape approach to conservation. And so I applaud you guys, yeah, again for such important work. We've got another question about how can the public audience that's tuning into this webinar maybe support your organization? So, for example, would it be donations or volunteering? Are there any ways that they can support Hirola Conservation Program today?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there are a variety of ways you can support us by donation. Of course, resources are very limited in this part of the world. In addition, we can, if you're coming from a zoo, for example, or a conservation institution, you can help us design educational materials that we can use for the school program. If you're interested to visit, we can talk about that, and you can do experience firsthand conservation action. You can help us celebrate World Giraffe Day or World Hirola Day that happen annually as well. So I think we can get in touch and initiate any level of collaboration between our institutions.
Thanks, Ali. Yeah, there's so many ways to get involved in conservation, I would say, for this whole audience. If you want to volunteer, every year, WCN also hosts our Wildlife Expo in October in San Francisco, and the Hirola Conservation Program attends that in person. So if you want to meet Ali in person or his team, they'll be at the expo every year in October in San Francisco. I also just dropped the link in the chat. If you'd like to donate to the Hirola Conservation Program today, you can do so on WCN's website at wildnet.org/HCP. And we guarantee at WCN that 100% of any donations allocated for a specific partner or species is given to that species without any fee taken. So we try to support as much as we can incredible local organizations just like HCP. So if you guys want to support them, we'll guarantee you that 100% of it will go to that group. So I, yeah, encourage you all, please, to get involved and support amazing conservationists just like Ali and his team. But following up on that note, Ali, we know that the past year, fundraising for conservation efforts internationally has been really challenging because of federal funding cuts we've seen in the US and a shifting landscape for priorities of different government entities who might have supported international aid efforts or wildlife conservation efforts globally in the past, but have shifted some of their funding priorities. And so I was curious if you can share how being a locally led conservation in northern Kenya has how have you been able to cope with such changes in the landscape? How have you adapted through many different challenges we've faced in the past decade, like the pandemic or current funding changes like this?
Yeah, thank you. That has had a huge impact in Africa, particularly in Kenya, where conservation thrives. And um, we have also been affected by that as we lost a few partnership that we had. So we coped with that by applying for emergency grants with different institutions, and also by scaling down some of the conservation work that we have been doing. So we eventually we were able to navigate through and survive that.
Yeah, it's really promising to see that I think local organizations have powered through a lot of these challenges we faced in the past 5, 10 years and demonstrate endless commitment. But I think that it's clear you need the resources too to do this work, and it's not easy every day. I know that oftentimes, whether it's vehicles getting stuck in the mud in this area or challenges that your organization is facing just to keep staff invested there, we want to make sure you have all the resources you need to do the important work you're doing. So just following up on a few more questions before we wrap up. We had one question from Lauren Gonzalez who asked, I'm curious to know what specific methods or practices does your team use to remove the invasive tree species without causing significant harm to the environment? You showed some photos of machetes using manual cutting. Um, is there any approaches that you would recommend? Because she feels it would be valuable for her insights, for her own studies and future work in conservation.
Thank you. That's a great question. So one of the species that heavily has affected us is Acacia reficiens. Is an indigenous non-invasive species. So we just thin down, um, open up. We don't eliminate entirely. We maintain about 30% tree cover in the restoration site and remove the rest. So that's one approach we use. Um, in addition to for the other invasive species is the prosopis. So once we clear the landscape, we replace them with indigenous acacia trees that are important for giraffes. So those are the two main approaches we use to maintain their habitat. But in Kenya, usually before you do clearance, you get permits from the National Environmental Agency, say environmental impact assessment, where they can rate and scale the level of destruction you cause. So there's some mitigation measures that are written down, and you follow that protocol as well. And that is overseen by the forestry department. And with that, um, you're able to do the restoration program. And it's a national kind of initiative where they're encouraging restoration, although the focus is on, replanting trees and not necessarily removing trees. And always grassland restoration takes tree planting usually takes more higher priority than grassland restoration. And we are struggling to put that idea around. So we have a grassland dialogue group that discusses that and continue to front that idea throughout the stakeholders in this part of Kenya.
Thanks, Ollie. Yeah, I think that's super important story to share because sometimes a conservation intervention like tree restoration might be misled or misguided if it's bringing in invasive species to an area. So I think it reminds us of how important it is to have locally led interventions that are really rooted in what the historical landscape might have looked like, and changes that you're seeing due to climate change or other issues of development. So I think it's important to understand always what the reality on the ground looks like, and that sometimes a grassland restoration might actually be more in line with what conservation values are than introducing trees. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's super fascinating story and a good lesson for a lot of ecologists. Um, Okay, we're reaching almost the end of the hour, so I wanted to maybe just close by asking Ali, now that the Hirola Conservation Program is a part of WCN's partner network, is there something that you're really looking forward to that you feel hopeful for in the future? As a new member of our network, as a part of this family now, is there anything that you feel like in the next 5 years you would love to see become a reality for Hirola Conservation Program?
Yeah, thank you. Of course, um, we're very glad to be a partner of WCN. And one of the biggest issue, of course, with conservation is the uncertainty of sustaining your program. Uh, so we have taken that now, and we are hoping that because of that, we're able to scale up our impact, and see the recovery of this species. I'm hoping to see the downgrading of Hirola from critically endangered species to an endangered category with the support of the Wildlife Conservation Network. I don't think I will be able to achieve that on our own. Um, and of course, with the large support and the network that you have, uh, I'm hoping that we're able to realize that over time. And that's my dream.
Thanks, Ali. Yeah, I hope to do everything we can at WCN to make that dream a reality. And I think that it takes everyone in this audience too. So at WCN, we try to acknowledge that our partner network is not just our conservation partners, but also our supporters. And so that looks like not just financial support or donations, but also contributing any awareness you can to species like the Hirola antelope, or contributing a specific skill or technical expertise you might have to offer insight into how they might improve their programming. Or just sharing the word with your friends and family is always important. So I want to say thank you to everyone that joined the webinar today. We actually will have a monthly version of this closer look call ongoing. So at the end of March, on March 26th, we'll have our next call with the Okapi Conservation Project, who's focused in the Democratic Republic of Congo on another ungulate you might not have heard of as well, called the okapi. So please tune into that if you'd like to learn more about a range of species in our network. And then also we mentioned briefly that you can meet Ali at the expo this October if you're interested in meeting a group of conservationists. The expo takes place every October in San Francisco. This year it will be on Saturday, October 10th. So definitely save the date. We'll share more over the summer about tickets for that. But if you'd like to meet amazing groups like the Hirola Conservation Program, that day at the expo is really a fantastic place to do so. So I encourage you all to come to that. But before we close, I just want to say thank you to Ali for spending the time tonight to tune in. I know it's Friday night in Kenya. It's probably 9 p.m. where you are now. So I appreciate you staying up late with us on Zoom and connecting with a global audience. And I hope that everyone learned something today that they can share further. So thank you, Ali.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. All right. Have a great weekend, everyone. I hope you all stay safe wherever you are in the world and enjoy connecting more about amazing conservationists. Cheers.
Uh, Thank you.